In rural France, Virginie takes care of her deceased husband's Locust farm, which is her only source of livelihood and feeds her two children Laura and Gaston. The locusts are farmed for protein, but the business has been experiencing a decline due to their slow reproduction and rapid death. Virginie seeks help in a locust farmer forum but finds no significant results. One day, a prospective customer visits Virginie and demands a discount on her locusts, which she refuses due to their low prices. Virginie then takes Laura with her to find fresh grass to feed the locusts, but she is saddened to hear the family is short on money again. She calls her friend Karim, a wine farmer, to borrow money and keep the secret. The next day, Laura sees a video that mocks her family for raising bugs, causing her hatred for the farm. Meanwhile, Gaston raises locusts in a terrarium, and when he accidentally injures his finger, one of his locusts feeds on it. Virginie takes her children to the city to sell her locust snack products to grocery stores, but they get into a fight with the guy who posted the video. Virginie decides to sell everything to the client to move out and start a new life, which makes Laura happy. The next day at school, Virginie approaches the guy from the video to tell him she will be gone soon. When the client arrives to finish the deal, he is disappointed when he notices Virginie's locusts are thin and lowers the price. This makes Virginie furious and refuses to sell. When the man says he came because Karim asked him to, Virginie realizes people have been buying from her out of pity. Unable to handle the situation anymore, Virginie goes to the locust tent and destroys the place with her fury. She slips and falls, getting hurt and falling unconscious. When she wakes up, she is terrified to find locusts feeding on her wound and runs out. Virginie meets with Karim and tells him she doesn't want his pity. When he asks about her arm wound, she lies about it and leaves. Virginie returns to her farm and notices the locusts being louder and more energetic. She suspects that they are acting because they have tasted her blood. Virginie tests this theory by removing her arm bandage and inserting it into the cage, where the locusts immediately start swarming her wound to eat. She hides in the bathroom to remove all the locust parts from her wound. The next morning, Virginie puts on protective clothing before entering the cage, and she discovers that the locusts have grown fat and multiplying fast in big numbers. Excited about seeing her project flourish, she starts building new tents with Karim's help. Laura becomes upset because she believes her mother is developing the business instead of selling it. Gaston asks his mom for the secret, but Virginie tells him she's fed them fresh parsley. She allows Gaston to take a few locusts for his collection, but Laura smashes a box with one of them during dinner and accuses her mother of lying. An argument ensues, and when Virginie explains she has debts to pay, Laura leaves the table. In Gaston's terrarium, the new locusts eat the older ones. Virginie returns to the cage in the evening and offers her blood to the locusts to keep on improving their quality. She is shaken by the bugs and goes to see Karim, who is having trouble with his own harvest. By the time the locusts are ready to harvest, the final result is very fresh and bountiful, so Virginie goes back to the client to offer her product again. Back on the farm, the neighbor watches as more tents appear, and Virginie begins buying fresh blood bottles from the butcher shop. She mixes the blood with jelly flour to make the blood turn into solid clots, and then goes around the cages leaving a clot in each one for the locusts to feast on. Laura finally snaps, tears apart some of the cages, and returns home without talking about it. Meanwhile, Gaston is waiting at the truck with his pet goat and is surprised to see a swarm of locusts on the window. He hides under the seat, and the locusts disappear. Virginie returns home, finds the goat dead and the locusts feeding on it. She scolds Gaston for her behavior, dragging her to her room by force. Virginie, a woman who is trying to save her family from the locusts, takes her children to the beach and gives them permission to go to soccer camp. However, she doesn't swim with her kids and keeps her clothes on to hide the scars she has from feeding the locusts. When they return home, Karim arrives with a scooter as a gift for Laura. A few days later, Virginie contacts a butcher shop to get more blood, but they discovered she doesn't have a license and won't sell to her anymore. She then tries a cow farm, but they have a waiting list. Virginie continues expanding her farm, almost cutting down Gaston's favorite tree to do so. With no blood suppliers, Virginie starts using transfusion equipment to get her own blood for the locusts, which makes her weak. The next day, Kareem visits her, but Virginie is rude because she's afraid to get caught. Later, she finds the neighbor's dog wandering around her farm and decides to feed the dog to the locusts. The locusts multiply in the house, flooding the vivarium, but this turns out to be Gaston's nightmare. The next morning, Virginie cleans all the bloodstains left by the dog, as more clients come to buy big quantities of locusts. Laura kills a neighbor's farm animal and brings it over to feed the locusts. The next day, she is so weak that she won't leave the bed, so it's Laura who must drop Gaston at camp. When she returns, she finds lots of clothes stained with blood on the floor. Worried and confused, Laura rushes to the farm and encounters a disturbing scene. Virginie is only wearing underwear and letting the locusts cover her body while she cries in pain. Kareem arrives and takes Virginie and Laura to his house for dinner and a movie. When they arrive, they discover that the locusts have killed the neighbor and are currently eating him. Terrified and disturbed, Kareem starts a fire to burn down all the tents with the locusts in them. Virginie sees the fire and runs outside to try to put it out. A huge locust swarm leaves the tent and comes after him, blocking the window. Laura flees into the woods to avoid the swarm, eventually reaching the lake and entering the water while using an overturned boat to protect herself. The swarm covers the boat and begins pushing it into the lake to drown Laura.
Virginie arrives to save her daughter, Laura, by covering her face with her blood to lure locusts. The locusts cover her body to feed, and Laura swims out to see her mother being attacked. The bugs don't let go until Virginie sinks in the water. Laura cradles her mother, and the women embrace each other as the swarm dissipates as the sun rises.